Good morning again, everyone, and welcome to this workshop on funding open source projects and initiatives. Thank you for joining us today, and special thanks go to our guest speakers who will share their experience on funding open source software with us. And this is a very various experience because it concerns different organizations and different, let's say, with different goals. I'm Monika Sowińska. For those that don't know me, I work in the European Commission's Directorate General for Digital Services in the Interoperability and Digital Government Unit. And one of my responsibilities is OSOR, the Open Source Observatory. So let's take a look at today's program. The objective of this session is to explore and discuss, as I mentioned earlier, various models for funding open source software projects and initiatives, because I wouldn't call it only projects. You are aware who our guests are, but for those that don't know, that will be really three different models, three different situations. We will talk about, and as our speakers and then the discussions, how in those projects initiatives different funding challenges have been overcome, and we hope that they can serve as source of inspiration. But first we will give a brief presentation on OSOR, because some participants might don't know us, and we'll talk about how our work supports the adoption of open source in public services. Then our guest speakers will share their approaches they have implemented to support the financial sustainability of the initiatives. So first up is Nil Homedes from Decidim, a digital platform for participatory democracy. And Nil will explain how Decidim responded to a kind of funding crisis by diversing its income streams. And then Joël Lambillotte from iMio, a non-profit association that provides digital services to municipalities in Belgium, in Wallonia. This iMio, initially dependent on public funding, has now transitioned to a self-financing model. So that should be very interesting to us, listen about that. And Joel will talk about this transitional journey. And last but not least, we have Mirko, Swillus and Paul Sharratt. They will present the strategy and operational model of the Sovereign Tech Fund. And for those that don't know, Sovereign Tech Fund, it's a public funding program under the Sovereign Tech Agency in Germany. It supports the maintenance and development of open digital infrastructure that serves the public interest. Mirko and Paul will offer a funder's perspective and present the fund strategy and activity. These great presentations will be followed by a panel discussion in which our speakers will share their perspectives on creating sustainable funding models. And you are, of course, all invited to participate in this discussion. Hopefully it will be very fruitful for all of us. I would like also, so please show the next slide. I would like also to introduce to you the team behind today's workshop. The OSOR members here support the Commission in ensuring that OSOR remains interesting and relevant to your needs. This support is provided through a contract with the consulting company Wavestone and Open Forum Europe. We have with us today Chloe Dussutor, Cindy Brendan Rocha, Amandine Courier and Edwige Maiville from Wavestone, and Nick Gate from Open Forum Europe. So now, time to briefly introduce OSOR. So please bear with me. Those that know us well, you probably heard this not once, but I need to do my duty. So the Commission Open Source Observatory has been serving the public sector organizations for more than 16 years now, and helping them to adopt, embrace open source by sharing knowledge and best practices and a lot of resources. So we started in 2008, and we hope to continue this service for years to come. We achieve this support by publishing a variety of resources, such as case studies, reports on open source policies and initiatives, and studies on topics pertinent to open source communities and anyone who is interested in open source. Uh, so we provide information about solutions, about initiatives. We have regular news updates on recent developments in open source within the public sector, but not only. And we organize events for open source community. We also hope, because we have a community around OSOR, that this community will become a part of Interoperable Europe community. I will talk a bit more about it in a second. So our audience is very various, so you can encourage your colleagues on different profiles that work with you, because it's not only for IT managers and practitioners, but also researchers, civil society interested in public sector digital transformation, your decision makers in public sector, and so on. Some statistics, if you please could show the next slide, you can see how many case studies and reports we have published so far. We have guidelines and country reports. Our country reports provide comprehensive information on open source policies and initiatives across 51 countries, helping organizations understand the landscape and make informed decisions. Of course, our case studies about open source software solutions and projects, and many, many more. So this slide is quite self-explanatory, I would say. Of course, the events and community engagement. So this is an example of this community engagement and organizing events. If I could ask for the next slide, which I remember it's about the community. So I would like to encourage you, because now it's official, and everybody who is a citizen of the European member state can register, because this community is more formal than the other one. But as you can see in the slide, the idea is that this Interoperable Europe community will combine members from different communities that already exist. This is linked to the Interoperable Europe Act. I'm not going to talk about it now, but becoming a member, you will have influence on certain direction in which the Commission and member states can work on interoperability. And as you know, open source is one of the key enablers of interoperability. So you have really great interest in participating in this initiative, and I encourage you to do so. So please register. The link is in the slide and is provided in the chat too. So this is end of this short introduction of OSOR, and we would like now to move to the main part of the presentation, and I would like to invite our first speaker, Nil Homedes from Decidim, to talk about his experience with financing the platform. Nil is a political scientist specialized in public policy, citizen participation, and technological sovereignty. He is currently general manager of the technical office of the Decidim Association and member of the Decidim's product team. So, Nil, the floor is yours, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Monica, for the introduction, and yeah, thank you to the OSOR team for inviting us to that workshop. I will share my screen so I can present my slides. Give me a second. hope it works. I'm assuming that you can see my.
Yes, yes, we can.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, so yeah, today I'm going to explain, as Monica was saying, our history around sustainability and how we manage a crisis of funding. The structure of my presentation is first introducing a little bit Decidim for those of you who don't know what's Decidim, then talk about the origin of that crisis, how we develop a sustainability plan, and then yeah, remarking the key aspects of our sustainability plan, review how is it going, the implementation of that plan, and finally share with you some learnings and challenges. So yeah, what is Decidim? Decidim is a digital platform for citizen participation. It's a free software project, and it was originally created by the Barcelona City Council, um, answering to a specific need that the government had at the beginning of a new mandate to run a participatory process in the city. So from the very beginning, the project was created with a clear vision, a clear technopolitical vision on how technology should be developed from the public sector, and with the idea of creating a community around the project. So a few years before the after the creation of the project. Right now, we have more than 450 organizations around the world that are using the Decidim today. To say some names, we have the New York City Council using it, for example, for participatory budgeting. We have the Brazilian federal government, the European Commission, the Helsinki City Council. We have some cities in Japan, some cities in Latin America also. So we have a worldwide extension, and we have presence in more than 30 countries. Also, we are mainly, our main use base is focused on public institutions, but also we have some um, organizations, some NGOs, some social movements, cooperatives, or even some free software projects that are using the Decidim to run their community governance in a democratic way. So just to clarify exactly how our ecosystem works, because I think this is something important to understand what I'm going to explain. In this graph, you can see that well, we the Decidim Association, we are a typical non-profit open source entity, and we are mainly in charge of maintaining the Decidim code base. That's our main mission and what we are mainly involved. But the strange thing I would say here is that we are not providing any kind of services to the governments or to the organizations that are using our technology. To do that, we have a bunch of service providers, IT companies mainly around the world, who are providing the Decidim and implementing and customizing it to the cities, to the governments, and to the NGOs. So those companies are the ones like doing profit from the Decidim, and we are not providing those services. And I'm remarking this because in most of the other open source projects that I know, usually this is not like that in our case. So that's how this works. And let's talk a little bit on that history on how we survive a funding crisis. So the origin of all that is that in 2019 we created the Decidim Association uh, because the project at the beginning was very attached and belongs to the Barcelona City Council, and we realized that if we want the project to survive beyond political changes and so on, we needed to create an independent organization who would take care of the project. And to do that, we created the Decidim Association, and the Barcelona City Council give us the responsibility of maintaining the Decidim source code, right? So the Decidim Association started with no workers, but then we started to hire some people. Then at 2022 we have two contracted workers, and at that time we were receiving two public grants, one from the Catalan government and another one from the Barcelona City Council, of 50K each one. And everything was good at the time, so we were starting to grow a little bit and to stabilize our work and so on. But suddenly, that year, the Barcelona City Council, they didn't pay to us a grant that was due to us. So that gave us a negative balance of 50,000 euros. So when that happened, we then realized that okay, that's kind of problematic, not only because the situation that this gives to us of having a negative balance, but also because we realized that we were so much dependent on one public organization, in that case, the Barcelona City Council. So yeah, we realized that we should diversify our income sources, and to do that, we say, okay, we need to develop and write a sustainability plan for our project and start thinking on funding strategies that would help us. So we hire a consultancy firm based in Mexico. They are called La Sobremesa, and well, they help us to write this sustainability plan. This company is very much specialized on doing this kind of work with different NGOs and so on. So they help us a lot. They organize 5 workshops with the board and the team, where we do some like internal diagnosis. We start to do some external analysis on the possible funders, how other projects, similar projects, are funding themselves, and so on. So finally, we came up with a sustainability plan and with a clear strategy on what to do in the next 4 years to diversify our income resources. So in that sustainability plan, we identified mainly 5 needs. The first one is to reduce this dependence on public funding. The second was to achieve a stable income base in the medium or long term, and also, well, one of the main goals was to have like a team that allows us to gain operational capacity, because at the time we were only 2 people, and we needed more people in the team to be able to maintain the source code, to interact with the community, and so on. So yeah, that was like the main goal of the sustainability plan, to strengthen the operational capacity of the association's team. So in that sustainability plan, we defined 4 different types of incomes. The first one is public funding. By public funding, we understand like direct public grants that public organizations gives to us. And we define it like that to, for example, differentiate these public grants from, I don't know, like horizon projects that are also public money, but it's not like direct money that it gives to us. We need to apply and do more work. The second income alternative is those private funds. This includes philanthropic funds, research, or even here we can include like these EU research funds like Horizon and so on. The third one is services. As I was saying, we don't want to do like the implementation services, because we really want to have this ecosystem of Decidim service providers around us, because we really believe in that model. And I think that this is one of the elements that explain the extension of the Decidim around the world. So we don't want to do the work that those service providers are doing, but we realize that we can do some services that can be beneficial for the community and for those implementers and for the governments, but without competing with these Decidim service providers. And the last one was the donations and the partnership policy that I'm going to explain right now. So we defined like an ideal scenario of how the distribution should look like, and we defined this rule of the 30% of public funding, 30% of private funds, and 30% coming from partners, and 10% coming from services. So also we draft some cost scenarios. As one of our goals was to increase the number of people working in the Decidim Association, we say, okay, how many people, which profiles, and what would be the salary of these new workers of the association. So with that, we do like these growing cost scenarios. And just to sum up very quickly, we defined a realistic scenario and an ideal scenario. The realistic scenario was more conservative. So we defined it to reach a budget around of 100,000 euros by 2026, and with a team of 6 people. And the ideal scenario was to reach a budget of 100,000 euros by 2026 and a team of 10 people paid by the association. So that was what we defined, and let's see how is it going after 2 years, well, almost 3 in fact, of implementing it. So also in the sustainability plan document, we defined like an action plan with concrete actions to do to start enabling those new possible funders and so on. So part of the team started to dedicate some hours to do that work. Well, in that action plan, we defined the partnership policy. I'm going to explain right now a strategy for donations, a strategy for fundraising, and a strategy to define and find new alliances with other public organizations. So what's about this partnership policy? As I was saying, we have this ecosystem of service providers who are making money from installing Decidim and implementing Decidim to the governments around the world. So at some point we realized that, okay, we have a lot of companies around us who are making some money relying on part of our work. So then we say, okay, we need to create a path for those companies to contribute back to the association, because we are the maintainers of these digital commons and they are relying on us. So we define a fee of 3% of the yearly income generated by the Decidim activities. And as a compensation, we recognize them as Decidim official partners, and they will appear in all our social media communications, in our website, and they will have some advantages, some benefits by being recognized as a Decidim official partner. It's important to mention that this is something that we cannot force. So this is based on trust and it's voluntary. So if a company doesn't want to pay us this 3%, they can decide to do that. And in fact, this is happening. Some companies, they are not paying us this 3%, but we don't have any way to enforce that. The only way that we can have that is by changing our license, but we don't want to change our license. The SIM is using an Affero GPL 3 license, just for you to know. So yeah, going back to that graph, with this partnership policy, we enable that path to return back part of the benefits generated by the city. So right now we have 11 companies around the world who are recognized as the Decidim official partners, so who are like giving back to us this 3%. But as I said, not all the companies that are providing the Decidim services are paying this fee. So that's something that we are still working on and trying to convince all of them to be part of that. Here you can see like the top financial contributors. Just to remark, for example, the first top contributor is Open Source Politics, is a French company, and they are making like 1 million of euros annually only with the Decidim services. So they have been paying to us 13,000 euros annually, more or less. So we have an open collective page also to manage these donations, the membership fees, and the partners donations, and also is a place where we explain how we spend that money. So we have like a transparency portal for everyone in the community. So let's talk a little bit of the fundraising work that we've been doing. During those 2 years, we have submitted 15 projects, 9 were refused, and 6 were accepted. I'm explaining that because fundraising work is tough. You spend a lot of time writing projects, filling forms, and so on, and it's hard, it's tough, and most of the time, the majority of your proposals are rejected. so it's a tough work, but you need to invest that time and you need to submit a lot of projects because the success ratio is usually low. Accepted projects. We have these these 5 accepted projects. We have received some money from People Power, that's an NGO that's focused on participatory democracy. We have received a 30K fund from the from Metagov, that's like a philanthropic research organization based in the US. They are very interested in participatory democracy and so on. Also, we have been receiving some money from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center to improve some of our open data features. Also, we have been part in a Horizon project called Multipod. So we will be receiving like 100K during 3 years. And we have been granted by NGI Zero Commons Fund like 18K euros for a small project called Decidim Revamp to do some like maintenance work on the Decidim code base. So, and also there's something missing here. Also, we've been funded by Fondation de France. That's like a philanthropic organization based on France, and right now they are investing some money on digital commons and so on, and we have receiving some money from them also.
Nil and there's Chloe from the OSOR team for the timekeeper here. So just to ask you if it's possible to open a few minutes so that we have time for questions. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I'm just closing the presentation. Just for you to show very quickly the evolution of our income. In 2023, the public funding represented almost 70% of our income sources, and in 2024, we decreased it to 56%, and those private funds started to appear as the second main source of income. So the last thing that I want to say, just share with you some challenges and learnings. Well, some challenges that we are facing right now is that we are like in the middle of a growing crisis, I would say, because we began as a very local-based project, and right now we have a very global community. Another challenge is how we can receive money, public money, from public institutions from other countries, because, for example, the Brazilian government, they want to give us money, but they cannot do it because we are an association based in Barcelona, and for them it's impossible to give us money as we are like a foreign organization. Another open question is how do we finance maintenance work, because most of the time when we apply for those funds, we apply saying, okay, we will do this new shiny feature, whatever, but it's very difficult to fund actually the maintenance work that it's very needed for the long-term sustainability of an open source project. And yeah, some learnings is that you should submit projects that do not divert you from your core mission. This is also a huge challenge, I would say, because when you're creating those projects, you always try to be innovative and so on. And maybe at some point you can find yourself like doing some part of the work that it's not your core mission, and you can be kind of distracted by those projects that you are presenting. And yeah, and also we need to internationalize our legal and financial structure. This is also a learning, and we are working on that. And the last learning is that we need a public agency for funding free, libre, and open source projects, especially for maintenance work that usually is not funded by anyone. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, and sorry for
Okay. No problem. Thank you, Nil. So we see some questions in the chat, but I'm not sure we will have much time to address all of them because we will be then a bit short on timing. But in any case, those we do not answer to, Nil, you can also provide your answers in the chat as well. But maybe for clarification, when we say someone is asking, what is a funded project? Is it a certain feature request or is it general funding for Decidim?
Depending. I mean, these projects that we submit, usually what we try to submit is like we try to fund our roadmap. So we have a roadmap very well defined, and what we try to do is okay, how we can fund this roadmap. So those new features or improvements on existing features. So that's mainly what we are doing.
I see many practical questions, and as Cindy said, we might not have time to address them all, but please also remember that we will have a session for panel discussion, and there is also opportunity to clarify certain things. So, Cindy, I will leave you this aspect, but we have also some buffer, I believe. The workshop is until 12:30, so please choose the next question, because there are some that I expected that it is, sustainability, especially financial sustainability of the projects. It's a very challenging area. So
yes, there are lots of practical questions. I guess we can take two other minutes to discuss it. And as I said, then Nil, you can also provide your answers in the chat while we move to our next speaker. So if I take them by order, someone asked you also, like, Nil, do you have any data or ratio on those who chose the partnership policy versus those who didn't? So I guess it was when you were talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, we can calculate it. I don't have the exact number, but I would say it's like 60%. Yeah, 60% are accepting this partnership policy. 40% that they don't want to do it because different reasons.
And another question on the partnerships, someone is asking, are you able to provide invoices for the money or is it a donation?
No, it's a donation. It's a donation. Yeah, and regarding that, we have faced some problems because some partners say that their like local law, the national law, don't allow us to give a donation to an international organization and so on. So yeah, for some of the partners, it has been a challenge, but we finally managed to do that as a donation in most of the cases. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe the last question, and then it's a bit offline. But so Claire is asking, can you please give more detail on how you identify and communicate with your partners who implement Decidim, and the process by which the pay their 3% dues, is it self-declared annually? Do you active partner management? Maybe Claire, if you can specify.
you. Yes, I was just checking to see what the process is. I know there are other questions related to that, so I was just wondering if there is much effort involved in kind of identifying and communicating with those partners that do pay the 3% fee, and just how that works.
Yeah, well, I would say that the project is quite big and so on, but for the moment, we are able to know almost all the new Decidim installations and implementations that are happening almost in real time. Almost sometimes we don't know of new Decidim implementations, but yeah, we are regularly trying to scan the new implementations, and then when we realize that okay, there's a new Decidim installation here, okay, who's behind that? Who's the company who's doing that? And we are adding those companies to our list. And at the beginning of the year, we do like a round of meetings with all the companies. So we reach out to them, to the ones that are paying and to the ones who are not paying, and we explain to them, to the ones that are not paying, what is the partnership policy, why it's important to join, and so on and so forth. We try to convince them, and on in the meetings with the companies that are already partners, what we ask them is if they can share with us their the foreseen revenue for the coming year, so we can like make an estimation on how we would how much money we would have from those partnership donations. So yeah, but as I said, this is based on trust, and so we are a small community, I would say, or for the moment, like the size of our community is quite manageable. So yeah, we have like a close contact with those companies also, and we try to have them very close to us and talk to them regularly, so we can understand their needs and so on. And yeah, and is it based on trust, this relationship, when they say, okay, this past year we have been doing €1 million with the same services, we trust them. We are not asking, okay, send to us like your bank account so we can see it and so on. For the moment, we are not doing that. Also, because we cannot do that because they always can say, no, I don't want to send you my bank numbers and everything.
Okay, and maybe the last question, because I think it should be a short one. Grisha is asking, how many public funding proposals are you preparing at the moment?
I mean, regarding the public funding, what we are doing is trying to involve more governments in the funding of the Decidim and in the governance of the Decidim. And to do that, what we are doing, for example, with the Brazilian government, we have signed at the end of past year an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with them, that in this MOU, we don't say, okay, the government of Brazil is going to give us money. No, we only say that we are going to collaborate for the maintenance of the Decidim and so on. And we are figuring out how we can receive that public money. Also, we are doing that, for example, with more public administrations here in Catalonia, because if we convince more public administrations here in Catalonia, for them it's more easier than for the international ones to give us like a public grant. And in fact, this year we will be receiving 3 public grants. So one more. So one from the Barcelona City Council, one from the Generalitat de Catalunya, the Catalan government, and one from a public organization called Diputació de Barcelona, that it's like the metropolitan area of Barcelona government. So yeah, that's what we are doing regarding public funding at that moment.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I also have some questions, but I will keep them for later, so we can give a chance to other 2 speakers to present their financing models. So thanks a lot, Nil. I just wanted to mention that the Commission recognizes the work of Decidim, as it was awarded not only by the Commission, because it's actually awarded by different gremia, but the Commission at the Sharing and Reuse Awards and OSOR Awards recently. So yeah, it's actually a flag project for participatory democracy. So happy that you are managing to actually overcome those challenges, although we can see that this is a complex and not easy process. Our next speaker, and the initiative that he will be presenting also was awarded by the Commission in the same awards. Joël Lambillotte from iMio. So I was talking iMio being awarded. So Joël was the co-founder on Communes Plan, an initiative to promote open source cooperation between local governments in Belgium. And the success of this initiative, that was at that time representing more than 50% of municipalities in South Belgium, led to creation of iMio, a public organization providing IT services and solutions to local authorities. Joël was a guest of OSOR not once and was presenting iMio, but now the focus will be on the financing model. But of course, we will hear also the story of iMio. Joël is now Deputy General Director at iMio, and he's responsible for the open source software strategy there. So, Joël, without further ado, your turn to present the financing model of iMio.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you for inviting me. Just present my slides. Okay. Oh, yes. Think you can see it?
Yes, we can.
It's fun because when I compare this project with Decidim, the first project we launched in 2007 was the same model as Decidim. It was called PlanGov. It was the community of the Plan CMS that was belonging to different governments in the world. And so what is fun, it's very frustrating for me not to have evolved in that, because it's very impressive to see Decidim. And in Belgium, because I'm a Belgium guy, each country said, no, it's my cities first. So you get rid of this international project, come back to your country and start the project locally. But the first idea was to go international. And so it's difficult now to go international when you have chosen your direction. And so, yeah, there's the story of this project, because we start in 2007 and the international way was really a failure. And so we start locally in 2012 with the Walloon region and the Walloon government. And so this project of mutualization structure based in Wallonia was hosting FLOSS software service solution for local authorities in South Belgium. And so we now have 430 municipalities and local authorities in that project using those different software. We are 62 people, 62 employees, including 17 in-house developers, and we serve 3.4 million citizens through more than 1,400 deployments. And so since 3 years, we are completely self-funded. So we receive no subsidies anymore. That's not so easy even in that situation, because as we are a public organization, we have some activity of general interest to carry out. So helping disconnect city servants. So yes, it's not so easy for that. But the other difficulty is the universe of different applications, because a city carry out a wide range of activities. And so it will have typically a diverse portfolio of applications. It is in interaction with one-stop shop, for example, management of city council, urban planning, childcare services, culture, heritage, and technical services. So it's quite diverse, and so you have to tackle all the stuff with your with open source financement model. It's not so easy. So I think that's the success of the project is that we carry out all those diversity of different applications, but also the different services behind this approach of software as a service applications. And so we also use the same frameworks to develop based on Python, so very open source and floss approach. And we built an application suite called iMio Apps, covering everything for trackers, as I said, and citizen engagement and so on. So when you see the map, well, rather 95% of cities in Wallonia are members of iMio and are using our applications. You see some holes there because it's not mandatory to belong to iMio, of course. It's not really officially pushed by the Walloon government. It's a bottom-up project, so yeah, it's always complicated in a government to tackle with those kind of free projects. So that's why we have self-funded now, and why there are some holes. It's because, of course, iMio's applications are not free. A budget must be approved by each city council, and there is also an approval from the government for the city to belong to iMio. It's not so simple. That's why everybody is not there, but nevertheless. So even if we are not an international project, we start, as I said, in an international way. So we keep that link with different communities, and we help those communities. We spent nearly €500,000 towards communities in sponsoring, working with developers, with public tenders to have better applications and source code, because we cannot do all the stuff with only 70 developers, of course. And it's very important to collaborate with those communities, organize sprints, conference, and so on. So now some details about the funding of iMio. I think what is important here, it's very generic. So it's very common sense, the way we finance or we organize iMio, so it could be reproduced easily in other public services, because it's the way we are doing things. It's very linked to the way we are public service. So we use, for instance, the in-house procurement rules, where public authorities can work directly with a public entity without going through public tendering. And this legal model, of course, simplifies administration, reduce costs, and help public cooperation. So this allows our members to delegate tasks to us without going through public procurement. But there are three conditions, as I said. Our member must own and control iMio, so it's very important for governance. iMio does more than 80% of its work for its members, so we cannot sell our application abroad. Or we are, in this case, we are working with integrators that reuse our open source stuff, of course, and sell services to other companies or public services in the world. In reality, it's mainly in Belgium, part of France, South America, but it stays at 90% in Belgium. And of course, all members that are working with us must be public entities, 100% public entities. So the benefits, of course, is the administrative burden between partnerships between public services. no VAT in some cases. So yeah, and so it's reinforced public-to-public cooperations, and it's the way we are working is also to focus on long-term service instead of short-term contracts. So this is the schema. Of course, the governance is rather complex because we are between public services and private sector. So below you have the members that must belong to iMio with the validation of the government each time. And then also you have the governments. For instance, it can be very complex because we have more than 400 members. So at the last General Assembly in June, there were 300 representatives of different cities. So sometimes it's very complex to organize votes in some way. And so with 300 people attending to the General Assembly, yes, you must also vote the budget and so on. So yeah, we are the only one Belgium structure with so many members. There is no other, and with no subsidies. So you can see also that we also push our source code in the public domain to be reused by mainly SMEs, so small and medium and enterprise in Belgium mainly, and sometimes abroad. They can reuse the source code and resell application, and of course work with us for the roadmap, of course, during sprint and conference. So the pricing models is also fair and sustainable. That is very important. We standardize the pricing models towards our members. So it's based on the number of inhabitants of each city. Of course, big cities pay more for hosting, for installing application that little cities. But it's a fair model and very transparent. And we also standardize the numbers of working day that is necessary to install, for example, a software as a service application. And it's also due to the fact that we also work hard on the industrialization. Technology like Docker, Kubernetes, and so on are very, very important for us to set up application in a minimum of work a day. And so this is the evolution of the pricing model. In red, you see the subsidy. It began with more than 1 million euro in 2012, and since 22, we have no more subsidy. And the global budget this year is more than 7 million euro. And we have only revenues for the services. There is no cotization or something like that, a fixed amount that each member pay every year. This is not existing here. They pay only if they are using a software service application. So if they are belonging to iMio and accepted by government and not using an application, they are just paying zero, nothing. So the key of success, starting with some middle-range municipalities, because big cities have their own use case, then their own problem and budget. So yeah, they are mainly autonomous. So it's difficult to reuse application from big cities towards small cities. And yeah, that's why starting with middle range is more generic. As I said, first pricing model must include a financial dependence at last. So at the start of iMio, we had subsidy, but we really want to get rid of that subsidy. The in-house legislation, of course. The support for trust organizations, it's important for us. It was the Union of Municipalities. Because cities trust us, it's their tool, so they are really confident in their tool, and of course industrialization and many services, of course, as I said, to support the funding. Okay, I finished. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joël. So, so now we actually have time also for a few questions. So let us know, or if you have questions in the chat, please feel free to ask them, or also to open your mics and ask your questions to Joël. Any questions?
Yeah, maybe I can ask a question. This is Mirko from the Tech Agency. Very interesting. I would be interested in how did you solve the kind of sovereignty question around the data centers that you use when you provide these hosting services for your kind of members?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't really correctly hear your question. It's difficult to hear.
Yeah, we had a problem to really understand. There is something, a noise in the background. So if you could please repeat. Because we can hear you, but the quality was not the best.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very bad because I have to present as
yes. Don't worry, we have time to fix it. But yeah, now it was okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I just checked that it's like really my headset here working, but yeah, let me know if it's not working. So my question was going towards the direction, the hosting services that you provide towards your members.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you are using Kubernetes and Docker, but what kind of data centers do you use? Is it kind of something that's local within Belgium or within the European Union, or is it like with the hyperscalers?
It's OVH. So we really don't want to tackle with a physical system, so only software. So OVH was really but we launched a tender for OVH, and so we have only servers that belong to us at OVH. I think 500 servers at OVH for us, because there is a specific legislation in Belgium. So yeah, but it's OVH. It's very standard.
Anyone else?
Wilfred, I would like to ask a question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
One question, Joël. So the servers are local in Belgium, I understood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. The second question is, this is like an association. Your structure is something like that built also in Belgium, because in Austria, we have a very similar structure, the Bundesrechenzentrum, which is also owned by the participants, which are the ministries, and we also sell services. Do you have similar constructions in Belgium, or you are the only one who is owned by public institutions or members of public institutions, and you serve public institutions?
No, it's called intercommunal in Belgium. I think it's more or less the same kind of organization. When cities have to share specific services like electricity, water, and so on, they create this kind of organization to share those services. But in the digital, it's not common. In Belgium, I think it's common more in France or in Germany, but in Belgium, it's mainly the private sector. But Brussels has its own also structure, but not in Wallonia. And I think in Flanders, they also have with the city of Antwerp the same structure, but it's often linked to a big city, and not because the difference is Belgium, we have more autonomy from local authorities. They have the city council autonomous, and so for the budget, so it's difficult for the government to help the cities with those kind of structure. So it depends on the organization of the state, of course. But
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyone else wants to ask a question to Joël, or in the chat if you feel more comfortable?
have a question, if I may, regarding the services. I see also on your website the nice list of services that you provide. Are these services mostly developed in house and then shared? I was also looking at your GitHub or GitLab repository, and I couldn't find any. Just to see there are some cooperation that can be developed also with, let's say, even other countries, other organizations around Europe.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe also, I don't know if you have also an open source program office with which then we can also interact.
Yes, we publish on GitHub in GitHub/iMio. You will find all the source codes, and we be soon published also on the European repository of open source application. And so we have those way to publish and to discuss in GitHub with the community. And we also publish in the Plone community, in the audio community, when the application we conceive is generic for generic clients. So yeah, you can discuss with us in GitHub.
Okay, thank you very much. So as Joël just mentioned, actually iMio's catalog will be soon federated with the EU open source catalog that you can find on the Interoperable Europe portal. So one of the conditions actually apart of using public code YLM to describe the solutions is of course to have a Git repository. So definitely iMio is there. Do we have more questions, or you can think about more questions for this session after the third presentation that we still have ahead of us? So can I introduce our next speakers?
Yes, Chloe from Timekeeping here. We're just in time for the next presentation.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Joël. And now it's time to Mirko Swillus and Paul Sharratt to present Sovereign Tech Fund. And our speakers, one, Mirko, comes from Sovereign Tech Fund, and the other one from the agency, and you will learn the difference during the presentation. So Mirko is leading the Sovereign Tech Fund, where he supports open source projects in the public interest and works conceptually on the further development of the program. He has a background in software engineering, where he worked for 15 years in various roles. His focus is on empowering inclusive teams and communities to solve relevant problems more efficiently. And open source is key to this and a topic close to Mirko's heart, which is actually the case of all of us. And Paul from the tech agency, Sovereign Tech Agency, is the policy and research lead at the agency, where he leads research on digital infrastructure and open source ecosystem, contributing to broader conversations on technology development in the public interest. So public interest is the key phrase here. His work focuses on evaluating the impact of public investments in open source digital infrastructure projects. So nice to meet you. I never met you in person. I met your colleagues Adriana and Fiona, and they were guest speakers in our events, but very happy to have you with us today. So please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Monica, for this nice introduction. I hope my audio is working now rather okay.
It's perfect.
Okay, cool. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Then we're ready to start. So thanks for the introduction again. So again, my name is Mirko. My colleague Paul will take over later on. We are from the Sovereign Tech Agency, and I'd like to introduce you our agency, but also the perspective that we share on open source and on the problem statement. And I'd like to actually start with that one. You all know this XKCD comic that we have here on the left side. So we are really about, caring about those little building blocks that are within the the foundation for the open digital infrastructure, as we call it. As you can see, we named some numbers here. Usually it's not the case anymore that we have any proprietary software around. So usually every also proprietary software includes open source here and there. So there might be different, percentages, but all in all, it's just that we nowadays all commercial open source, like code bases are also containing open source. And that involves some risks, of course, because you have a huge, propagation of those components throughout the ecosystem. I have this background in software engineering. So nowadays, when you write software, be it commercial or be it open source software, you always use components that are already there that you already can reuse, and that's actually a good thing. But on the other hand, you have huge dependency trees where usually your software is dependent on 300, 400, or even 1,000 components, and as you can imagine, some of them are only maintained on the weekend and in the evening by hobbyist maintainers, and that's actually one of the challenges that the Sovereign Tech Agency is trying to solve using different programs. We are funded by we receive our money from the German Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action. As you might have heard, there was a new government elected in Germany in spring earlier this year, and now we are waiting for forming up the different government structures, but also there will be a new ministry, so maybe we are also changing to that new digital ministry that is now created in Germany. And then we are still perceive ourselves as a public agency, and that also raises the question: what's actually the role of the state in this digital open infrastructure that I described earlier? So we believe that the government and the state has to ensure that we have actually the frameworks and the constraints to enable economic innovation, competition, and resilience. But again, most of those components or most of this infrastructure is invisible. So we all know about maybe Log4j, like there was a huge vulnerability that was called Log4Shell 3 years ago. And that component was invisible until that time it became very visible. So we, I think, have this common agreement that we need to maintain these kind of components, and actually that the market itself is not always able to fix those things itself. So there be, perceive this as kind of a market failure as well, where you have lots of parties that are actually consuming open source, but nobody is actually obligated to actually maintain and contribute back to those kind of components that we all use and all dependent on. And that's actually our mission statement. So the Sovereign Tech Agency aims to sustainably strengthen the open source ecosystem. We focus on security, resilience, technological diversity, and the people behind the code. So as you can see here, we are not only concerned with cybersecurity, so that's one of the things we are interested in, but we have a more of a holistic approach where we believe if you really take care of those components and the people behind the code, cybersecurity and a better security posture would be one of the outcomes, but it's not only the only one. So we also talk about accessibility, the freedom of choice, and all those things that actually enable innovation and a resilient digital infrastructure that we can all rely on. To do that, we have different programs in place currently. So it's the Sovereign Tech Fund, which is still the main program, and it's still the program also with the most visible brand, as you could say. Then we have also the Sovereign Tech Resilience Program, which is more focusing on cybersecurity, and then we also have the Sovereign Tech Fellowship Program, which we launched last year, where we currently have 6 individuals working with us directly, where we support actually and the people behind the code, where we don't commission classic implementation projects that have a start and an ending point, but in this case we finance open source maintainers for a full year, so that then they can concentrate and focus on their maintenance work fully, and being also paid for this kind of activity, and not having to do this in the evening and on the weekends, where the children jump around and you have this and that project going on. So that's one of the things we wanted to ensure, and that's one of the things we also might want to grow in the future. But coming back to the Sovereign Tech Fund again, so again, it's the major project or the major program of the Sovereign Tech Agency. So far, we have invested around 23 million in around 60 critical open source technologies. And you can look it up actually on our website. So it's sovereign.tech. The link is also in the slides later on. So we have a technology section where you can, scroll through the different technologies that we actually invested in. And we care about maintenance here. So we're not focusing too much on adding new features, or even things like, things where there's lots of money, and like AI lately, and before that it was like all things blockchain and cryptocurrencies and all that. So we really try to focus on maintenance, which is a very boring task, but it has to be done, and actually nobody's really taking care of this in a paid way, so that we actually believe that it's necessary to also solve this challenge with money, while we agree, or while we acknowledge that money isn't the only thing to actually solve this. So there's lots of other challenges in that field, but money is also one of the things that is important here. Yeah, we have different criteria why we select projects, and we have different processes on how we actually get to the project that we invest in. You can see the good criteria here. So I think the most visible one is like the public interest argument. So it has to be in the public interest. So we're not investing in things that are only relevant for a very small group of commercial actors. So that we always look for what's in for the public interest. And then also we look into the activities as well. So we really want to make sure that within the activities of the projects we invest in, there is some sustainability measures also involved and included, to make sure that we make sure that things are not ending suddenly when we leave the project or when our investment ends, so that we make sure this has a really sustainable effect on the project. You can imagine this as, in engineering, software engineering, we as engineers, we try to always increase test coverage. We always try to reduce technical debt, and to make projects more maintainable and all that. So that's actually one of the things that make the projects more maintainable and sustainable in the long term. And within the activities, we usually look out for those kind of actions. Short, visualization of our process. So we have two different streams of, projects which come to us. So the one is scouting, where we have a team of technologists that is currently 3 people, and who are, constantly looking out for gaps in the ecosystem, things we want to, that are, interesting for us from a public interest and vulnerability point of view. And then we have an application platform that's apply.sovereign.tech, where we accept applications all the time. And then we have a multi-stage process where we start with screening, and then by the end we have a final decision if you want to invest in something or not. And then we have other programs as well. The Sovereign Tech Resilience Program is as I said, focusing on cybersecurity things and talking about or like trying to address security critical vulnerabilities within those projects. And that's an ongoing program that we also want to grow and establish as we go. About the fellowship, I already talked about a little bit. So we have currently 6 fellows in the pilot program. You can also call this kind of open source maintainer in residence, if you like. So fellowship is maybe a little bit more coming from the academia background, but in this case, we are really financing people to do very practical work within the projects they are maintaining. We also have a blog post series currently going on where we introduce those maintainers that are working with us this year. You can also look it up on our website, which again is sovereign.tech. From time to time we also do challenges. This is just a measure for us to also experiment or like discover new ways of procurement actually, because as you can imagine, we are spending German taxpayers' money for open source projects that are located globally. So we're not, limited to the German boundaries, because we acknowledge that open source has no boundaries actually. So we do contracts with projects all over the world, and this is but also a little bit challenging here and there with just public procurement law, and so we made it possible, but at some point we also need to find other ways to actually procure those projects in a bit more leaner way, and the challenges is one of the instruments that we trying to have a look at from time to time. Currently, there's no challenges ongoing, but we think about to renew this later this year. Let's see. And with that, I'm handing it over to my colleague, Paul, who will talk a little bit about the case studies and also how we measure impact later on.
Yeah, thank you, Mirko, and thank you, Cindy and OSOR for the invitation. As Mirko said, I'm just going to run down a handful of projects that we've invested in to sort of highlight the diversity and heterogeneity of the topics that we're talking about. But just to kick off with Log4j, which, as Mirko mentioned, the original Log4j vulnerability in 2021 was actually pretty key to the formation of the Sovereign Tech Fund. And to this day, we kind of still use the counterfactual of what would happen if there were another Log4j, another vulnerability of the scale and size of Log4j as part of how we communicate the importance of the work we're doing and the funding of maintenance more broadly. But just to sort of dip into the numbers a little bit, since 2023, we've invested approximately 600,000 euros in Log4j, covering a wide range of work relevant to the project, including improving the release pipeline, documentation, which is obviously a very important but often underfunded kind of piece of work for open source projects. We also enabled the team to address the source code repository structure and introduce some fuzzy testing and performance testbed. So really a range of different work that was done for the project. Then looking briefly at the OpenJS Foundation. So of course, I'm sorry about the formatting of the slides there. JavaScript obviously underpins a wide array of applications across sectors. We've invested approximately 900,000 euros in the OpenJS Foundation, which itself was founded in 2019 as a home for JavaScript. And the foundation is home to roughly 40 open source projects in the ecosystem. And our investment was, as I understand it, just distributed across a number of them. And so the goal here was to enhance the infrastructure and security of the ecosystem as a whole, including Node.js, jQuery, Electron, and more. The end results of this were kind of a scalable infrastructure solution. Interestingly, a security engineering champion, and quite crucially, the sunsetting of a couple of inactive projects, which again is a really key but often underfunded aspect of open source community work. And then lastly, for the case studies, I just wanted also to flag the Python package index, which I think is a good instance of the kind of open source infrastructure, or rather infrastructure for developers themselves that we talk a lot about. And to enhance the security and functionality of the Python ecosystem, we invested in some critical engineering, maintenance and support for PI and its widely used packages. This included integrating SigStore for secure packaging, signing and improving key infrastructure components. Part of the aim behind this was to protect Python, Ruby and Rust ecosystems from supply chain attacks, which was kind of identified as a top threat by the German Federal Ministry for Information Security, or BSI. And we invested over €1 million in the Python package index across 2023 and 2024. Again, just to run down a couple of the projects that we've worked with and the diversity, which leads us onto the next slide, which is kind of, as a publicly funded organization, we sort of sit as an intermediary between the German government and these decentralized open source projects. And so one of our tasks is kind of to balance bureaucratic accountability with the sort of fluid and open nature of digital commons. Of course, one of the things we have to do is to account for our impact and how we spend taxpayers' money. And so one of the things we are sort of trying to address is come up with a credible framework for measuring our impact. And just briefly in this slide and the next, I wanted to give you a bit of a sort of taster of how we're sort of thinking about it. Obviously, one of the key challenges is, given the extreme heterogeneity of the projects and the types of work that we fund and invest in, as sort of evidenced by the 3 projects that I highlighted, it's extremely complex. And there isn't a single metric that fits all of open source software that we could apply. And so what we try and do is sort of start with the why, as it were. So understanding what the specific goals or objectives of the funding, and then associate that with certain quantitative or qualitative indicators that we can use. We also look into or try to account for the project life stage and structure of a project. So again, there's a range of governance models at play here. Some projects have, kind of large and very active communities. Others are more on a sort of, solo maintainer basis, which makes it a little difficult to sort of, categorize the projects across that range. Lastly, we also try and account for cost factors. As the sort of Nebraska comic indicates, we're actually investing in maintainers across or around the world. And so these individual maintainers will themselves encounter different sort of economic factors and contexts, which make it a little bit difficult to sort of pull out a sort of universal kind of, context there, I guess. And the same is also true to some degree of the foundations and the hosts for open source projects. So accounting for cost factors is really key. In the next slide, I just wanted to give a sense as well of where we can find some of the direct and indirect impacts of our funding and how we're thinking about sort of breaking this up across social, economic and technological measures. So this is quite detailed.
Just Chloe from the timekeeping here, that if you can wrap up in a few minutes so that we have time for the questions.
Yep, absolutely. This is the penultimate slide, so that's well timed. But I'll run down this quite quickly. It's a fairly straightforward sort of quadrant breakdown. But the most obvious and immediately kind of measurable impacts that we can see are on the project level and direct. So these can be something on the technological basis of measures of GitHub, of development activity on GitHub or other version control platforms, ranging through to, let's say, like the hardest impacts to measure. That would be on the ecosystem level and kind of indirect. So stuff like, is this contributing in some way to to job creation or market growth or cross-project collaboration, or even standardization and patents? We would like to think that we can sort of indicate that there's an impact there, but obviously from a causal perspective, it's extremely hard to draw. But this quadrant, I think, gives you an indication of or these 4 quadrants gives you an indication of where we're looking and what we're building towards in the case for our impacts and our effects. And then finally, last slide, which I think happily ties in quite nicely to one of the questions we have, and also one that I think popped up in the chat. So we are trying to position ourselves as kind of a model for other states and government funded organizations that want to invest in open source maintenance. And for this means that we're collaborating and engaging on the domestic German level. So that's with Zendis and Sovereign Cloud Stack and GovStack and others, but also on the European level with European Digital Infrastructure Consortium on Digital Commons with France and the Netherlands. And then lastly, on the international level. So just recently, Mirko, myself and others from the team were at the United Nations for Open Source Week, where we were contributing to discussions about using open source for sustainable development goals and for digital public infrastructure. And all of this with an eye to basically trying to put this model out there for others to replicate or borrow piecemeal as they wish. And that's us. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Paul and Mirko, very much for this presentation. I'm very, very happy to see that you are expanding, and with the back of agency that you're getting, the very solid governance structure and new programs. It really going in a great direction. It's a very noble initiative, and also happy that you promote this approach. And I would like to encourage our participants also to promote this approach and discussing in your member states to actually think about a similar model. This understanding that open source doesn't have boundaries, and even though it's funded by German government, it funds open source everywhere. I wish we could see this type of initiatives mushrooming and maybe also joining forces in the future, cooperating. This is probably our common wish. I would like to mention that not long ago, less than 2 weeks ago, we published on OSOR a case study on the fund. And Mirko was our source of information. So maybe you will find there some additional information about the fund and the agency. So I encourage you to go to OSOR and check it. And we have some questions in the chat. So I will ask Cindy to go through them. I think at least one of them was already answered by our speaker, but others are still to be answered. So once again, thanks a lot, and it's time for questions and answers.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, all good.
Yes. Oh, perfect. Okay, I had some issues with my mic. Yes, so indeed we have a few questions. The first one was asked by Grisha, who is asking, what is your relationship with SPRINT, so the Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation?
So this has been already answered more. If you have a look at the chat further on.
Yeah, indeed.
Sorry, you can see that. Thanks. So let me try to see if some have not been answered yet. I think there was one that was very early on in the call, which was a question from Gerardo from Gerardo Lisboa, was asking if there was any coordination with the EBI Stake EU Fund as well.
No, not to my knowledge, we're not coordinating with them directly.
Okay.
Perhaps we should.
And then another question from Gerardo, which was do fund conditions allow allocating overheads to maintenance?
Mirko, I'll let you answer that, but I think the answer is yes.
Yes, I tried to find the question, but able to do it. So if the question is if you are funding also maintenance work, yes, that's our core focus.
Okay, and let me see if
we don't have other questions in the chat, but then if participant wants to just ask a question now, that's also fine. We have time for one more question.
Anyone else?
If not, I have a question.
Go ahead, Tori.
Now, I had a question on how, because we've seen with the previous presentation that it's important not to create, a dependency on a single funder. So my question is, how does the sovereignty agency tries to, minimize the risk that the recipient of the funds will have a sustainable funding afterwards, and it's just like not a one-off that would then be difficult to maintain over time in terms of funding of the project. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. I think so. Maybe to start with, so if the project that we invest in has some sustainability measures in there already, I think there's a value in it. So even if we stop funding at some point, so there is something that was created and this will stay, right? So there's value in it as long as we, make sure that those activities I talked about earlier about those are actually implemented, like increasing test coverage, for instance, right? And then, yeah, of course, we also want to make sure that people are not too dependent on us, right? Because that would also create just another dependency and another, thing that you want to get rid of at some point. So we encourage our projects to look into diversifying their, streams of funding or money. So we tested, for instance, one thing where we, brought together an open source project and on the other side, like kind of business angels or business consultants who are very much aware of the open source business models out there and try to connect them and just, stay on the whiteboard for 2 days and trying to figure out a business model canvas, which is sometimes a little bit difficult because as you can imagine, for those kind of components we are targeting, like deeply in the dependency tree, there isn't too much of a business model visible immediately for those kind of projects, right? So this is really a kind of a thought experience that you have to do there. But at some point, we believe that could be possible because ultimately, industry with large revenue streams are really depending on those kind of components. So at some point, we believe that it must be possible to create a revenue stream, an income stream for those kind of projects via support contracts or via other things when those components are really critical for the money pass, for the revenue streams of like corporations with lots of gross margins and all that. So that should be possible from our perspective.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, perhaps just to pick up on that as well, I think also in terms of our broader strategy and our engagement with kind of, if you like, other STFs or other sort of similar instruments, that's part of the reason why we want to promote and share what we find through our work, which is to promote this kind of ecosystem of funders themselves that is commensurate to the problems and the issues that we see in the open source ecosystems. And so really it's not about having one single kind of point of funding failure, but rather having a really diverse array or landscape, if you will, of funders to meet these different issues. Yeah, exactly. Second, yeah.
Another question from Marcus that says, is it possible to support STA and how so maybe?
Unfortunately, at the moment, it's not possible for us to kind of take, as it were, sort of direct donations. Our structure is such that we have BMVE, which is our client ministry, But as Mirko said, we are looking into trying to sort of diversify our own funding, and that's going to be a priority for us certainly next year, I think. But at the moment, we don't have the legal financial structures to take on sort of individual donations, unfortunately.
On the other hand, what's also always helpful is to, keep speaking about that there is something like the Sovereign Tech Agency to just increase the visibility of our kind of role model and to make, things more visible, and that always helps.
I see a hand raised, so please do not hesitate to.
It's Renata Slava, yes.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Renata, if you can you hear us? I understand with the mic problem. You can you can share the question in the chat if you want, if it's easier, or remark.
Okay, it's about the form that was chosen for the fund or agencies, GmbH. Why this legal form was chosen?
Yeah, so briefly on that, and Mirko, if you want to jump in, feel free, obviously. But the agency exists as its own distinct legal company with a service contract with our kind of key client ministry. And so technically speaking, it's a distinct company, not part of a ministry. And that gives us a degree of flexibility in terms of other subcontractors that we work with, where we can allocate funding and so on. And really, if you like, what we are is kind of experts working on behalf of the ministry to allocate funding or resources to open source projects.
So thank you. You have just replied to the other part of the question about the advantages of the setup and the disadvantages and challenges.
Yeah, just looking at the question in the chat. Yeah, I mean, I think we come back to this point I was trying to make earlier, which is that we have to sort of balance, as it were, our sort of bureaucratic obligations to the ministry with our understanding of open source projects and their needs. So we've been very careful to try and design the funding process or the application process, as Mirko showed earlier, in as lightweight a way as possible. Because one of the things that you have to obviously recognize is that open source maintainers themselves have limited time and resources to actually apply, right? And so that was a really key consideration going in for the design of the fund as an instrument. And really, it's then about, on the one hand, balancing our obligations to our ministry stakeholders, but also being mindful of the kind of specific context that the maintainers themselves are working in. And it's a bit of a trade-off. So we're sort of trying to swallow that complexity ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think there's one additional questions from Marcus. It was possible to support the agency with time, not only so it's the contribution not only with money, but for example with helping with reviews, scouting projects, and so on.
I'll hazard an answer there, but I think obviously Mirko can jump in here too. We do have a kind of complement of staff, program managers, technical program managers, and technologists who do this work. So unfortunately, it's not possible to kind of support on a volunteer basis with the actual work of the fund. But as Mirko was saying, Marcus, please do sort of promote our work or get in touch if you're interested. we operate to specific kind of criteria, obviously, and have our own internal processes and have to function as a legal entity. So we can't offer sort of volunteer positions, unfortunately. But if you think there are projects that out there that you know of that could do with funding, please feel free to kind of send them our way or recommend us to them. That would be very, very helpful.
Okay, thanks. Great. There's one more question from Peter Visco. I think it was partially answered in the presentation because you mentioned that you are cooperating with Zendis, and OpenCode, of course, it's related to that, but there is a specific question. What is your relation to OpenCode, and do you cooperate in some way with them too, not only with, let's say, policy dimension?
Maybe I can take this. So we have a regular, we're speaking on a regular basis with the product managers of OpenCode.de because it's a very interesting project. So for everyone who does not know this, so this is a project that is maintained by Zendis in order to create a repository that is an open source catalog repository for base components, but also for applications to support actually the digitization of the German society and government structures and administration, processes as well. And yeah, that's an interesting project for us, specifically because they are also looking into dependency graphs and trees and trying to secure the supply chain of their projects that they host on OpenCode. And that's interesting for us because we are also, somehow looking into supply chain issues, like what is actually the security, vulnerability, stability of those components in those dependency graphs. And that's interesting for us to, use the data that OpenCode is generating and trying to, match our different perspectives on that one and help each other in order to identify critical open source digital infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Once again, a bit of promotion on my side, what the Commission does. OpenCode.de, we cooperate with them too, and their catalog is already, part of the EU open source catalog on Interoperable Europe portal. But this is for another presentation, maybe. So thank you very much. You can still think about the specific questions to our speakers. But now we would like to move to some questions, general questions to all of them that we have prepared to ask, for example, about the future and so on. So, Cindy, please go ahead.
Yes. So indeed, this is addressed to all our speakers. So feel free to jump in and provide your insights. So this section we will actually see if we really divide it into two parts, but the idea was more to keep talking about your specific models and see how do you see them evolving and what are the challenges? And the idea would be also to ask you, audience, some questions. So my colleague in a few minutes will share some links with you. So feel free also to provide your input. And then we will discuss more about how do we how can we build sustainability in the way you fund your projects. So maybe first question to all of you is indeed, how do you envision your models evolving? So I don't know who wants to jump in first. And I think this will, yeah.
Maybe I can start if you want. Yeah, well, from our perspective, as participatory democracy is something very related to the political will of each government. One thing that affects us a lot is like when there are elections and new governments come in or are replaced. If those governments has participatory democracy in their agenda, that means that we will be adding those new governments in in the ecosystem. So related to that, I think that we will see that the Decidim service implementers will be changing during the next years. Some of the most strongest maybe will decrease a little bit their services because of these political changes, and maybe we will start to see new Decidim implementers from other countries or other parts of the world, especially from the global south, I would say. And also a trend that we are seeing, or an opportunity, is all the money coming from international cooperation agencies, because for some of them, digital public infrastructure, digital public goods are starting to become a priority, and we see some funding opportunities there. And hopefully, I think that another thing is that we will start to see new public tech agencies, as the sovereign tech agency replicated in other countries, and maybe we will have some European agency at some point. So hopefully we will start receiving some money from those new public agencies also. So that's my vision on how our funding model will evolve during the next years.
Thank you. So a lot of hope for the future, yeah? So
yeah, today I'm optimistic.
Okay. Joël, Mirko, your plans?
Yeah, I can just summarize because it's also logical. As we have a pricing model based on the usability and the of our products, so add more products, and it seems there are no limit to that because we are, I think, still at the beginning of the e-gov, the digital transformation. So there is so much to do yet, and so we already have had a project management software to sell it and so on. So yeah, no limit for that. We have also projects for crowdfunding, because the problem is the fragmentation of the investment. So with crowdfunding, you put all the people on the same project and share. So and use them to share some project. It's a good way to evolve. And of course, cross-border collaboration, because there are so many common software we develop in each country that it's, I think it's in the future it will really be interesting to share. I know it's already done, but at my level, small and little cities, it's more complex to reach that level of maturity, because technology is more and more complex. Artificial intelligence, we are just also want to have our own sovereignty on that stuff. It's the only way is to collaborate with other countries. By our own, it's very difficult to finance. Yeah, in summary, that's it.
Thank you, but happy to hear that you're optimistic and just hard work, and you can sleep well when it comes to financing, at least of iMio activities, basic activities. So thanks. Mirko, Paul, I understand that your plans are also tied to the agency and the formal structure you have behind. But how do you envisage, development in your case?
Yeah, maybe I can start. So from my perspective, we need to make sure that the Sovereign Tech Agency is a stable and long-running entity. And we did the first steps last year when we created our own legal structure. And now I think we need to also look into how to diversify our funding. So currently we have a contract with the ministry, and we have friends and supporters throughout the political landscape in Germany as well. But yeah, we are also, since we use German taxpayers' money, we are also very dependent on those kind of political decisions as well, which is fine because it's it has to be a good governance model and how to spend tax money. That's okay. But on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, we see also a huge responsibility of the industry in that whole playing field, and that means we need to make it easier and for them, and to incentivize also industry to chip in with industry money as well. So there is first approaches there. So we have also the hyperscalers who are invested here and there, but we need to increase this, and maybe that's also there's also an opportunity to coordinate on this together with the European Commission, together with European legislation like the Cyber Resilience Act, to actually create a more strong invitation towards industry to come in. And then on the other hand, we are also growing and learning constantly. So we have this iterative approach where we look into instruments and try to improve them over time, and that's an ongoing thing, like with iterations. As you can imagine, it's a huge challenge to actually identify those projects with a specific criticality in there, and you can look at huge data sources for all that. And so Paul, for instance, is also leading initiatives inside the SDA to actually increase our understanding about what's actually digital public infrastructure, what is critical, and how can we identify projects, but also activities that actually make a difference to those kind of components.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, I'm happy during your presentation you mentioned that you are also, working with the members of the new EDIC on digital commons. So if they also work on the approach that you are using in the agency, and this type of work is promoted, there in other member states, I think the future is bright. You mentioned CCRA. I also want to mention Interoperable Europe Act, that actually it was in the context of industry, but when it comes to the public sector, Interoperable Europe Act, Article 4, it obliges member states, public administrations, and other bodies to use open source for interoperability cross-border solutions when they are comparable to what is available as proprietary solutions. So there is a boost coming from this act, and I think the landscape is changing. It is the beginning of the process, but I think that this type of organization, as your fund and agency, may be created in other countries. Not sure about the EU. This first needs to be understood at the level of member states. So I always encourage you, this is to all participants, this is also depends on you, your work, your lobbying, your promotion. It's important. So thanks a lot for these answers. And Cindy, I think we have something now for all participants.
Indeed. So the second question, so now we are going to move to a more participatory format. So we have a question. So we will hear in a few minutes about the answer of our speakers, and some of them have already covered the challenge that they faced when it came to funding open source. But now we want to hear a bit about you, audience. So we're going to share a link with you in the chat, where you will be able to provide your answers through a word cloud. So I will let my colleague Edwige explain that, and I will share the link in the chat in the meantime.
Indeed, thank you. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Thanks.
Of course.
So, as you can see on your left first, you have access to a QR code to the application Particify, on which we have prepared 2 questions that you can answer. And you will also have the link in the chat directly, if you prefer to click and just copy paste on your device. So we leave you 30 seconds to do that. And in the meantime, we wanted also to show you a quick example on the right of the screen on how it will goes. Maybe Sidi, if you can activate the little video, because it's quite important, as the answers needs to be, displayed first, and then submit your final answers. Meaning, for example, for the second question, what are the main challenges you face? Please answer challenge A, challenge B, challenge C, etc. before submitting your final answer, because you won't be able to move back. We give you 10 seconds.
Okay, sorry. So just a quick question. Someone is mentioning not seeing the slides. Can you see them? Okay, it depends on who. So can anyone just so we just shared the link. In any case, it's okay if you connect to Participy in the chat. So we just put the link in the chat, so you can copy paste that link in your browsers. And then Edwige will launch shortly the activity for you to provide your answers.
Indeed. And so for the one that were not able to see the little example on the screen, again, there will be the question that will be displayed in front of you in several seconds. And please, insert different answers that you want to put as a keyword, because the idea is to have a word cloud that we can discuss later. And so answer all the answers that you want to put before submitting your final answer, because again, you can do it only once. So I will just start the first question that we mentioned.
Edwige, can you see if people are connected, just to make sure?
I'm not entirely sure. I can see the answers, but not, unfortunately, the people connected. So please don't hesitate to put a message in the chat if you have any issues. You should be able to see the first questions, which is, what are the main challenges you face when it comes to funding open source projects? And so you can include up to 8 or 10 answers before submitting. We'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to think about it, and then we can discuss. Thank you. There's already 3 answers and 1 abstention that I can see. Cindy, I think I will share my screen already. We have 11 answers, as we can see, and we can maybe start display the results. Please feel free to continue to answer, of course. Okay. There is sustainability, economic viability, licensing, ownership, planning for founding, short-term budgeting, awareness, partners.
Funding not available, qualifying funds, no willingness to pay, and misalignment. Okay, sustainability is big, so that's good, because that's the theme of today's talk.
There is also time that is interesting.
Maybe we can start reacting to those, and then in the meantime, perhaps more answers will pop up.
Sure. So maybe one of the speakers would like to react to these challenges that are displayed. Do you relate to any of the ones that are shared by the audience? Feel free to jump in.
I am sure that they our speakers related, but which one is like the one that concerns you the most? Of course, I understand that there are different finding models that we presented today, so you may have a different feeling about.
Yeah, go ahead, Mirko.
Yeah, I just want to pick out the ones that says like users have no incentives, or no incentive to actually. I read it that way, to contribute back or to actually you know support in the maintenance, or like to support their open source projects, right, to the users. And I think that's a thing we need to work on, so that it's more it's possible for the also for people, for instance, working in companies, to make this more visible to their actually senior management, that this is going to be a long-term problem if you are not contributing in the things that you're using. And I think that's something we can change together, to increase the visibility of those invisible components, also on those invisible work that sometimes that's happening, and to make sure that if you want to ensure your business model in a strategic way, that needs to be a strategic asset actually for your organization to contribute back to open source, be it in a financial way or be it with time or something else. And I think these kind of strategic incentives, that is something to work on, and also to create narratives that actually help people to understand this better, and to also give them kind of a playing card or something like that within their organizations to advocate in a better way for open source contributions.
Thanks a lot. Any other comment regarding our participants' input?
Yeah, I would add that, yeah, the sustainability of those funds are something critical, and it's always like an open question, no, an unsolved question, because even if you have some certainty that this public entity will be like supporting you, things happen, there are political changes, priorities can change, an economic crisis can arrive, and then the public institutions can have like budget cuts. So yeah, that's I would say one of the biggest challenges, that this uncertainty that you have to deal with when you are planning your next year budget or your 2 coming years budget. It's something tough to do, but it's part of the game, you know.
Okay, thank you. Should we maybe move on to the next question because of the timing, right?
Yes, indeed. So for the next question, it will be the same mechanics. So I will let you show the question, Edwige. So the question is the following: in your opinion, and since we were talking about sustainability, so it was a great transition, what are the key factors for ensuring sustainable funding? So if you have still access to the link, you can normally, so the question is open, so you can also provide your answers. And if not, the link is still in the chat. So the same, we're going to leave you 1 minute, let's say, just to provide your answers as to what, according to you, could be those key factors to help you ensure sustainable funding. And then we will hear maybe insights from our speakers. Yeah, sorry, the 25 characters limit was not our doing. But if you want to complement your answer, Ole, maybe you can write it all as well in the chat.
Let me display the result already. We have 6 answers, so that we have already some elements. So clear governance model, license-based CHIM, political support, diversification. I think we should already start React. So if one of the speakers would like to start, feel free.
Yeah, political support is growing
Yeah.
as an answer. And sorry about the limit, but as was mentioned, Particify, which is an open source application, provides this limit, so it is not our idea.
So yes, go ahead, Joël. You want to react? I see that.
Yes, just I put governance by user because we have had some problem with that. Well, politics changed at the government level. One day they just delete our subsidy at the beginning, and so the users that were glad really of the application really decide politics to put back the subject. So if the user is not glad of your work, it will not work. So I think, yeah, back to the basics, it's the user that really, for the open source model, that is really interesting for Perennity.
Thank you, Joël.
Maybe I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but maybe Nil, what would be your key factors to ensure sustainable funding?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe one thing that comes to my mind is to have like legal agreements with your supporters, and if those legal agreements include binding financial support, that would be great, because that's like a legal formula to have like a more stable income that can be more resilient to political changes and so on. And those legal frameworks can be very helpful for us. And yeah, of course, political support is something critical on that.
Thank you. I see also in big diversification, which was actually also what you talked to us about and what you tried also to achieve in Decidim. Okay, and maybe Mirko, Paul, your insights on this.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely share the sentiment around sort of sustained political will, as it were. I think, though, happily, and this is a reflection of some of the discussion that we were having earlier, given what's happening geopolitically, the discussion around digital sovereignty and European digital independence is just kind of picking up. And I suspect that topic won't go anywhere. And as long as there's that sort of political interest, then and as long as open source is viewed as a lever to reach those ends, we can assume, with some degree of confidence that the funding will flow. I'm thinking particularly of initiatives like the Eurostack, for instance. But that has, that kind of, there's also sort of indirect effects for organizations like ours. And obviously we also have sovereignty in the title. But yeah, I mean, more broadly, I think we would want to see, reform to procurement Certainly, that's a major concern of ours, and the reduction of administrative and legal complexity in the allocation of funding is actually quite a kind of a crux for us. You know, we're making these investments in the public interest, and have certain obligations, you know, to our financial and budgetary stakeholders, and so we have to fulfill those requirements. But also, you want to get the funding out, and you want to allocate it well, and you want to make the application process as simple and straightforward as possible, whilst meeting those obligations. And I think the sort of emerging discourse around sort of institutional innovation and public procurement reform, that I hope will have a kind of net impact on the sustainability of funding itself.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Like, being conscious of time, I think I would like to move to the next question that we have for our speakers. So thanks a lot for your participation.
Yes, so the next question, and it will be our last question, is if we go back to all that you've shared with us, and also your different models. So speakers, according to you, to what extent do you think that your models are replicable? I think that we can start with Sovereign Tech Fund and Tech Agency, because I think you touched upon that a bit towards the end of your presentation.
Yeah, from our perspective, we are here also to demonstrate that this is actually doable. So even with the tight constraints of a public procurement legal framework that you have to follow. And I think that's a good thing, that we can actually demonstrate this. So I believe for everyone outside of Germany, be it Europe or like the rest of the world, this is actually a good thing for people who are, you know, in the policy landscape and they want to do this argument. They can always pull us out of the drawer and use us as an example where they can say, actually, this is working. You can look at them, you can look at their website, you can look the team and Paul, they're working on impact reports and all that. So we really work on making this more visible and really demonstrate this. And then we believe it's rather easy to replicate this because it's a proven model.
Indeed. Anyone else? Joël, Nil?
Yeah, I can jump in. Yeah, I don't know. To create or to design a sustainable funding plan, I think that the first thing that you need to do maybe is to learn from similar projects to you and like understand what others are doing, because a lot of projects are facing similar challenges, I would say. So like do this diagnosis is something crucial. And then I think something that we are learning to do is, okay, how we can transform the work that we are doing, like our core mission work, into pitchable projects, and that's a skill that you need to learn by practice, like by doing, and that means, okay, how I can make this work that we are regularly doing something attractive to those funders. How can I write it in a project and add like those outcomes and those impacts, so the funders they really want to pay for that. And that's something that is I would say it's difficult to do, but once you understand how to do it, then then you start to submit better projects, and then you start to submit projects that are very aligned with your mission. That's something really important, I would say.
Thank you, Nil. And Joël, maybe the word to conclude.
Yes, there is also it's very the common way, as I already said, for us. So the key features using open source, service-based funding, public governance, legal certainty. It's affordable for everyone in Europe. So I think it's of course feasible to be self-funding in that way.
Thank you very much. I mean, we presented 3 different funding models, and they concern different type of organizations because we have 2 associations, one at the level of municipalities, then the other one association that working around the platform, Decidim, and the agency that is funded by the German government, the ministry. So when we put this question on display, actually my thought was, okay, all those models are definitely replicable. It just depends on the project, the structure, and so on. But what is needed is the energy of the people behind it and their conviction that, these things are achievable. So I hope that those great presentations will serve as an inspiration for all of you to work with, collaborate with your peers, and to think, depending on your situation, where you are placed, to try to replicate those models. This was our idea, to really share this experience and to inspire you, and also to put you in touch with people that already went through these processes presented today. I saw in the chat some time ago there is a request or question if speakers could share their links to either Fediverse or LinkedIn, so our participants could follow them and contact in that way. I think in the presentations, at the end of the presentations, there were some contact details, but please, our speakers, share if you have all the social media or GitHub. I mean, probably you can find them also too. I would like to thank you all for being here today with us, and a great special thanks to our participants for preparing very interesting and informative presentations, and thanks for all your fantastic work in the first place. We would like to invite you to the next OSOR workshop that will be on another topic that is challenging for in open source ecosystem, which is the procurement, and we plan it for autumn. So follow us on OSOR, where we will announce the date for this workshop. I also would like to thank my team for organizing, preparing this workshop, and I hope to see you all in autumn at the next OSOR workshop. Please subscribe to our newsletter. I didn't mention newsletter when I was talking about OSOR. We publish monthly newsletter when you have the overview of all the news items and other studies, guidelines that we publish. So it goes out every month. Cindy, Chloe, Edwish, anything that I should add, or maybe something from you?
No, maybe the thing that we can share is that so we will write, let's say, a little article about this event and also share the recording. So also that's like you can share it also with those who could not come today. And yes, we thank you for your participation, and we hope to see you in future events.
Thanks a lot, and hopefully the funding models that we presented today can be replicated in other organizations or countries. We have someone?
No, maybe it's someone that wanted to send an emoji and raise their hand. Or
okay, is the system doesn't recognize the application. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, and have a good lunch and have a good day.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon and good break.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
everyone.
Monica. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.